Hey, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on as a guest.
Thank you for joining. I can't wait to hear all about the stuff that you do. Can I
Yeah,
start by asking you to explain digital fashion to anyone listening?
yeah. So I'm Stephy Fung, and I am a digital fashion artist. So every day, what I do in my job is digital fashion. And the plainest way to explain it, or the simplest way to explain it, is that it is a representation of fashion, but instead of using fabrics, you are representing it with pixels instead.
That's very cool. And I've seen some of the videos that you've put out. There's a lot of AR stuff that I'm seeing. There's a lot of I'm seeing like you moving around in like real time. I don't know if it's real time or recorded, but the clothing basically looks like it's on you, looks like it's real. It's super cool.
Yeah, that's AR. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really neat.
that's
And
the
so
most exciting part of digital fashion at this moment.
yeah, actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, as we know, Apple recently put out, well, they're putting out the new AR thing from Apple. Will do you think that them
Yes.
entering that will make a big impact on what you do?
Um, if I'm honest, it was all heading that way anyways. Even before
Mm,
Apple, Meta was already, of course, they changed their name to Meta, right, for the metaverse, and actually with the VR headset. So like they were already heading that direction anyways. So
mhm.
Apple's next to follow, and with all these other tech companies, they're going to be implementing more of this sort of the merge between physical worlds and digital worlds, and that's where digital fashion really sits within.
Yeah, definitely. How did you get into digital fashion?
Yeah, it's an interesting story because I don't come from a fashion background. I actually started in graphic design,
Mhm.
and that was my major. And then I moved into 3D motion design because I just fell in love with animation. I think as a kid, I used to watch a lot of Disney animation and Ghibli animation. I just fell in love with that, with the storytelling. And so for me, when it came to graphic design, that was like posters or editorial books or, things that were static. It just didn't really excite me. But when the graphic design pieces started to move, I was like, yes, this is really exciting. And I slowly moved from motion design to 3D. And that's where I picked up all my 3D skills. And I think it was during 2020, during the lockdown, I had a lot of time to myself. And I was pretty much at home. Everyone was at home, actually. So I had,
Mhm.
I used to commute to London. I live like on the outskirts of London. So I used to commute every day to London, central London, and it took me about an hour, let's say hour 10 minutes going there and an hour 10 minutes coming back. So even just having those extra few hours at home, I used that time to learn digital fashion. And at first it was just a way for me to have some fun because I've always wanted to make my own clothes, but just was too lazy to do it physically. So digital fashion was the perfect way for me to create these outfits that I wanted to create and to do it quickly. I could do it all on my PC. And the way that I learned it, well, with digital fashion, it's essentially 3D. So I grasped that concept pretty quick because I already came from a 3D background as well. So jumping from 3D to digital fashion, playing with it for about roughly a few months, and then I realized that, oh, this is really good. Like I want to do this more. And so I started taking it more seriously and I just kept posting. I kept posting all my, I suppose, my progress on social media,
Mhm.
and clients saw it or even just like creative saw it online, and that's how I'm able to get jobs within this field, is that people can see that I'm able to do it and to do it well, and now I'm doing it every single day.
That's amazing. That's so,
Thank
such an
you.
exciting thing too, like to be entering this space that's so up and coming, and it feels like you're really like at the, at the beginning of it, and this is just something that's going to be like, it's hard to even fathom how many applications this can have as AR becomes more integrated with our tech. Like you mentioned, like
Exactly.
this merge of digital and physical.
It's very exciting. And yes, you're right, it really is the beginning of it. I mean, I've been doing digital fashion for 3 years now. It's been about 3 years.
Mhm.
And we're still at the beginning. There's, especially with all this technology, we're still waiting for the technology to catch on. And as you said, you were impressed with the AR body tracking of me. I
Mhm.
was walking about with an AR filter on top of me, right?
Mhm.
In the future, that AR filter is just going to be seamless. It's going to be quick. It's going to be easy to just, place upon people. Right now, it's doable right now, but I would say still a lot of the technology is still a little bit janky, I would say.
Mm,
And
yeah.
there's room for improvement, of course, but I'm very excited to see within the next few years of where the technology will head. There will be new jobs that I will never have expected. Maybe I'll be doing something different in a few years, but still in digital fashion. I don't know. And the funniest thing is when people ask me, "Oh, Steffi, what do you do?" I always tell them, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just, here for the ride, and we're gonna see where it takes us. And I'm excited to see. Yeah, I would give it 5 years. 5 years, it's gonna really accelerate.
Oh, you think 5 years?
Yes.
Hmm. I almost wonder if it'll be faster. I think, like,
Mm.
AR's I don't know, especially with people are talking about it now, people are excited about it with the Apple thing. Um, I'm hoping, like, AR comes sooner because there's so much that can be done with it, and it'll be so cool to see some of the things you're talking about come together and,
Hmm.
like, be really seamless.
Yes.
You mentioned getting work. What kind of like, what's your, do you get contracts or I know you do a lot of different social media stuff. What's sort of the, what takes up most of your time? What do you usually work on?
I am a freelancer right now. I
Hmm.
do many things. I like to split it into three categories in terms of the things that I do for my work. The first thing is, of course, being a digital fashion artist. So I always create my own designs. That's what I'm primarily known for is my digital fashion garment designs.
Hmm.
And the second thing is, oh, I nearly forgot, education. I'm quite uh, I suppose, passionate about education because there's not a lot of it out there right now. It's gotten a lot better, but if you were to search up, how can I get into digital fashion? There's, I tell you, what I use right now is about 6 to 7 programs to create what I want to create. Of course, you
Yeah.
don't need to use that many, but as I use more 3D programs, I see what their strengths are. Not one 3D program can do everything.
Right.
So I end up using all of these different programs to create my final artwork. So because I've been in this space for 3 years and there's still not a great deal of good resources out there, I'm trying to now put more emphasis on educating people to come into the space or even just an up and coming new digital fashion designers who want to create their own designs. I'm trying to give more love and, I suppose, knowledge to the community so that they can start learning as well. And the last thing that I do, which actually ties in with my educational pieces, is a lot of content creation, which is why I'm always on social media all the time.
That's really cool. So sorry, there was doing the actual creation of the digital fashion,
Yes,
education. What was the third part?
content creation.
Content creation. So that kind of overlaps with the education, does it?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So, okay, I have a bunch of questions from what you've said. First of all, you said you use 6 or 7 programs. Which programs do you use?
I use Daz 3D to create the avatars. You can actually customize your avatars, and it's a lot of fun. It's like playing with Sims actually,
Hmm.
and you can really customize it. So the good thing about this program, it's free, and you need it in order to put your digital fashion garments on top. So that's the first one. The second one is I use a few different digital fashion programs. There's a few of them now. So the first one is Clo 3D, which I probably use the most.
Hmm.
There's Marvelous Designer, of course,
Hmm.
which is in the sister program. And there's also a new one called Style 3D, which I've been testing and still getting the hang of. But all of these programs can create digital garments. Doesn't always have to be garments. I mean, if you want to create pillows or curtains or I don't know, something that is organic and fabric based, you can create that in that program.
Hmm.
And then you move on to texturing, and I've picked up the love, well, for Substance Painter,
Yes.
and I think I've fallen in love with it completely just because I used to use Photoshop, I used to use Illustrator for creating my textures on a
Wow.
2D map, but it was just really finicky because I would be creating something in 3D and then the maps are 2D. And
Yeah.
then I have to, kind of like switch between programs to see the changes,
Hmm.
and that was annoying me. So when I got into Substance Painter, the beautiful thing is you can be working on a 2D map you can paint, draw all over it, and you can see it updated like straight away. Or you could actually paint and draw on the actual 3D asset, and it will update on your 2D map, which I'm just it just saves time and it just makes more sense to me as a visual thinker and learner. So that's what I use for texturing.
Hmm.
And then we move into 3D program. So once you've made the garment, once you've done the texturing, I like to bring them all together and actually create a 3D scene. The 3D program that I tend to use is Cinema 4D just because I come from a motion design background and a lot of motion designers use Cinema 4D. And I've tried also using Blender. I feel like a lot of people are using Blender in industry now, and
Hmm.
I'm like jumping ship. I want to test it out and see how far I can push Blender and if it can take over what I do in Cinema 4D. So that's what I'm balancing right now. But
Hmm.
these 3D programs, essentially, I can do the lighting in them, build a 3D scene, do the rendering actually, which is
Hmm.
highly important because a lot of my works are animation. So I render it out. And finally, the last part is color correcting, editing the video, compositing. So we're talking about post production here, where I usually work in After Effects if it's an animation, or I go back to Photoshop if it's a still image.
That makes sense. And that sounds like a good collection of software to be using for what you're doing. And that's interesting that
It's
you're
a very
switching over.
expensive amount of softwares to be.
Yes, it's the same with game development. I got some overlap with a number of those programs. I haven't tried Clo 3D or the other. I use Marvelous Designer, but not the other one you mentioned.
Yeah,
And
yeah, they're very similar.
yeah, and I haven't used DAZ, but that just means I end up using other software to make the avatar myself. So that's
Hmm.
like a bunch of those as well. So I hear you on needing to know a lot of software and also having to pay for a lot of software. It can definitely add up.
Yeah.
But I do think that with a lot of these things, there are free options that might not be quite as good, but it's a good place to start if you're like interested in getting into anything like digital art, digital fashion, and game development. There's free options, and then you can like graduate to the maybe a little bit more complex software, like the ones that have a little bit more features if you really need to later. So I'm glad to know that some of these are available to people at least.
Yes.
And so, okay, so also, I can't believe you used Photoshop for texturing. That you like that must have taken so much brain power to like take the texture and then like stretch, well, not stretch it, but like move it in the right way for it to match the UV maps. Like
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
can only
it was
imagine.
not fun. If you watch maybe even 2 years ago in my early Twitch streams, that's how I would be working. And I would be going back from Photoshop to Cinema 4D to see how it looks like, and I'd be going back to tweaking in Photoshop again, and then it was just a lot of back and forth. And so, Substance Painter is really here to save the day.
Oh, it's so good. How did you were you able to do normal maps in Photoshop?
Yeah, you can create
Yeah.
those. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have seen like I've pressed the create thing, but I don't know how good it is because I'm usually using Substance Painter. But
Hmm.
I guess now that you're using Substance Painter, you don't even have to worry about that anymore.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Because
that's good.
it exports it all out for you, which is the dream.
Yeah, and Substance Painter, like Substance Source, I guess is now Adobe, whatever it's called now, has a lot of options for different. Like they have a lot of fabrics, which is cool. So
Hmm.
that'd be fun to play around with.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I do spend some time on there as well. They've got a good library.
Yeah, they do. What kind of clients do you get, and like what type of work do you get with your freelance stuff?
So from time to time, I work with clients. I don't work with clients all the time. I've actually been balancing my time between working with clients, also selling NFTs, and also working on content creation and education.
Hmm.
But when I do get clients, it's interesting actually. I would say a lot of my clients aren't fashion based. They are actually, I've worked on a project with, let's see, with Dell, for example, a technology company. I've worked on a project with Glenfiddich, which is a whiskey brand.
Cool.
And I've worked on a project with Gucci, which they are fashion, but the other two weren't. So it's very interesting with who I get to work with because they might not necessarily be a fashion brand. And at the same time, as I am also trying to create my own digital fashion brand, I have to be very selective in terms of if a fashion brand does come to me, I need to know, if they have the same types of values as I do as well, because there's a whole issue with, of course, with fast fashion and with sustainability and physical fashion. And with digital fashion, we're trying to counter that. We're trying to be like almost like a solution, one of the solutions to help
Hmm.
counter one of the main problems in physical fashion.
That's really interesting. I never even considered that side of digital fashion, but that's a really good point. Does that mean like would we imagine a future where people are just wearing like the same jumpsuit every day and then they have like cool AR and then they never get rid of the jumpsuit because that would be
Yes,
wasteful?
absolutely. We're thinking, oh, what's that film? Get Ready. What's that? Ready Player
Ready
One.
Player One. Yeah.
Ready Player One, where he's just wearing one suit and then he buys something online and then it's suddenly he's wearing it. Like
Right.
that's what I'm envisioning. And that's just going to become more seamless in the future. So I'm very excited for that.
Ooh, that's kind of a fun, like very sci-fi vision of the future.
Yeah, I'm thinking in the future there'll be more people will be buying more digital assets, like as in when you buy digital assets, you usually think of gaming stuff where you buy certain perks and you get a collectible or you get certain redeemables, whether that's usually a digital asset, right? But
Mhm.
we're trying to link it back to physical because right now not everyone is a gamer or they have that mentality of buying digital assets because a lot of people like tangible things. They want things they can touch. And so right now with digital fashion, the main question or the main problem I would say is that people say, okay, cool, digital fashion looks awesome. How do I wear it? What's the point if I can't wear it?
Mm.
So that's the kind of bridge that we're crossing right now. And I would say the more that we can, at this point in time, combine digital with like physical redeemables at the moment so that people can understand where the link is happening, then this convergence towards digital worlds or buying things digitally is going to be more accepted.
Hmm. That is an interesting question slash problem. It almost makes me wonder, like, there's so many people who post, pictures of themselves on social media.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the time people maybe I don't know if this how often it is, but I'm sure people will buy clothing
Yeah.
with the idea of like, I want to like look good in my pictures that I'm going to post on social media. So if that is the case for people, like maybe they just want to go out and be around people. But if it's to take pictures, like maybe there's a way to put on the digital clothing and just take pictures. It's
Yes.
almost like more it's almost more interesting than buying clothes, ordering them, doing like a photo shoot and then posting it. Like
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
could just do it digitally and skip all of the physical process that you just mentioned is causing problems.
It's definitely a new way of thinking. And I think, yeah, specifically towards influencers or fashion influencers who just maybe get a PR package, they wear it once, and then they don't ever wear those clothes again. So maybe this could be a way to tackle that. And with digital fashion, it's a lot faster to produce. You don't have to go through manufacturing, you don't have to send things anywhere. You can send it digitally, it's quick. I would just say, of course, the way that digital fashion looks right now is not spot on because people can still see that it looks digital. But it's an interesting point because with digital fashion, it's got the word digital in it. Do people want digital fashion to look real, or do people want digital fashion to look actually digital with like amazing like imaginary wings and like not real world physics and all that stuff? So that's why I'm having a hard time deciding between the two.
Oh yeah, that is an interesting question. I guess the answer is putting it out once people are ready to like start. They're like they get it and they're buying it and you can just find out which one people are more interested in. But
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting like question when you're designing stuff.
Hmm.
It yeah, gosh, you could do so much with it. It's so fun. You must play around with like filters a lot.
Before digital fashion, I didn't really actually, but digital fashion AR works so well. And the reason
Yeah.
why it works so well is because when people can see it, and when they can see it on the top of their body, that's when it clicks for them. That's when it
Mm.
makes sense. They're like, "Oh, this is really cool," and it tracks. It's like as if they are wearing it. So that's where AR works really well. And also, I always think about the fact that before, with face filters, they weren't widely adopted before, but now on TikTok, on Instagram, you don't even think about it. You just swipe, put it on, it's just not something we think about now because it's just so normalized. So With digital fashion, I'm hoping that it will get to that point where you can just choose a digital outfit and people aren't going to bat an eye. They're going to be like, oh, cool. Like another filter, another day.
Gosh, that'd be so interesting to imagine. Like, you're right. People put on like they'll record the video. They don't bother putting on makeup. They just put on a makeup filter, and they don't have to bother putting on a cool outfit. They can just have a cool outfit, and now they're here, ready for
Mhm.
the, ready, looking glamorous without having to put any work. And that's pretty cool.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. So you said you worked with Dell, you worked with Glenfiddich, you worked with Gucci. How was it working with them? What kind of work did you do with them?
I guess with them, with all my client projects so far, I've been very lucky
Hmm.
because they have been more collaborative than being a client where they tell you to create something that's in their style. So they have been more so a client where they said, this is the brief, this is the theme. We want to include this product or a certain product of ours, and we want you to reimagine it. And I'm like, oh, great. This is an open brief, which is dangerous. But what it allows, especially as an artist, I get confused because I used to be a designer, but then I'm an artist at the same time, and I'm a bit of both.
Hmm.
So as an artist designer, I'll say both.
Uh-huh.
Um, it gives so much responsibility to me because I'm trying to represent not only their brand but also my brand as well. So
Yeah.
it's fun and scary at the same time, but where there's definitely a lot of meetings to ensure that we're, reaching a happy medium.
Hmm. That's really cool. What were the specific things that you made for each one?
So with Dell, we created a 3D animation.
Hmm.
I created a bespoke digital fashion animation for them, as I usually do as an artwork. And then based off of that animation, we actually created a whole advertising campaign based on that animation, which was absolutely insane. It was my first advertising campaign, and
Hmm.
I didn't realize the scale of it until I actually went to the studio to actually film for that advert. And it was a whole crew with at least 50 people in there, like with like
Wow.
set design. They made like a fake office for me. They made this surreal world based off of my animation. And all of this was okay, not only to promote their products, but
Hmm.
also to promote digital fashion, which I, at that point, during that time, I'm like, wow, like, big companies taking this risk to promote digital fashion, which is a new industry. Not many people know about it or understand it. So I find it admirable that, when clients take on digital fashion, because it is a huge risk. And yeah, so that was the first one. And I absolutely loved that project. It was definitely an experience. The second project with Glenfiddich, we worked with Highsnobiety to actually recreate three of their packaging. Now, they collaborate with artists all the time. So they actually collaborated with artists the year before to recreate their packaging. And I had to take those packaging and recreate it in my own style, but with digital fashion. So it was a huge collaboration between many, many artists. And so once I created my version as a digital fashion piece and it was an animation, we actually sold those as NFTs.
Hmm.
And with the NFTs, if they got sold, the idea was that the proceeds would go back to these art charities of my choice, which I just found it was so nice to like give back to the art charities. Which before working with Glenfiddich, I had no clue they had any interest in the arts or in creativity. I just thought you're a alcohol brand, you just sell alcohol and that's it. But
Yeah.
what's lovely is that I learned from working with them that they give back to an art community every year. They
Hmm.
just give back every year. I'm like, damn, like if I didn't work with you guys, I had no clue. So that was a really wholesome project. And
Hmm.
of course, the one with Gucci, another animation,
Hmm.
clear theme. All of them needed animations. It's because that's what I put on my social media is what I'm good at. So we created an animation, but this time this project was more product based. They really wanted to highlight this shoe, sneaker, I would say, and it's a running sneaker. And they wanted me to reimagine this sneaker in my own style. So I had to have that sneaker like as it was, but I got to have fun with like the way that I presented it and the
Hmm.
way that I showcased it in the space. And so that one was a little bit different in terms of compared to the other two projects, but still quite enjoyable as well.
That's super cool. That's really fun.
Thank
Wow.
you.
So how does you are coming from the more like 3D artist side of things rather than coming from the digital sorry, the fashion side. How does
Yeah.
it feel going into this industry, especially when you're coming in with like these really new concepts and this new approach to things? How is that getting received? What's kind of like the feedback you're getting from that?
The digital fashion community is still quite small. It's definitely grown within the past 3 years that I've been in it, but there are still not a lot of digital fashion designers as
Hmm.
such. So I'm still one of the very few digital fashion creators in this space. So a lot of people are still quite wowed or by it. It's still quite a new thing for people who are not in the industry. Um, I still get a lot of people who don't understand it yet, especially where it comes to, oh, how do I wear it? What's the point of it? But in terms of the actual creative industry as a whole, there's definitely more people who understand it. And also in terms of physical fashion, more physical fashion brands are picking up digital fashion and implementing it into their brand somehow. At the moment, I think a lot of them are using it as an experiment and also as a marketing ploy because it's such a new industry.
Yeah, no, I could that. I mean, imagine if a brand could use digital fashion, put it out there, so maybe even sell it for AR stuff before they even go into physical production of that item. Like it'd be such a great way for them to know where to actually, which type of clothing to actually make that people are the most interested in. So it's
Yeah,
almost like it could be a really useful tool to work alongside physical fashion as well.
exactly. And there's quite a few, I wouldn't say there's many, there's quite a few brands who have used that system that you just talked about.
Hmm.
It's called made to order, where you sell a digital token, usually as an NFT. So
Hmm.
you sell the digital asset, people buy it, then you know how many people need this physical piece. And then you can start manufacturing it, you can put it into production. There will be less waste because you're not guessing how many people have bought it. You already
Hmm.
know who's bought it. You just got to
Right.
create it, make it, and then ship it off, deliver it to them.
That's cool. That's a really neat way to do things. Can you tell me more about the NFT space with digital fashion?
Yeah. So with digital fashion, it is definitely closely tied with NFTs and the Web3 space, just
Hmm.
because of how I suppose with NFTs, they are always highlighting digital assets. NFTs gave a way for digital artists or just anything digital to be sold and to be you would in exchange you would give cryptocurrency for it. So that's why the whole NFT space blew up in 2020, because a lot of freelancers or a lot of artists like myself who are digital artists, before that we were very reliant on client work in order to earn money, right? To earn
Hmm.
income. But with NFTs, it just gave us a way to create or to utilize what we already know and actually sell it in return for cryptocurrency, which gave us a new income stream.
Hmm.
So it was a very exciting time. So with NFTs, what I love about it is that it can be anything digital. You're talking about artworks, which is what I do, or animations. You could, trade music. You can trade like audio files, right? AR, anything that is digital, you can, exchange it as an NFT token. And what is really exciting about this technology is the way that you buy something digital, and then perhaps in the future you can redeem it for an event ticket. If you've got a certain token, you get access to a certain event,
Right.
or you have a certain token, you can redeem a physical hoodie from that brand. Or if you buy this token, you can redeem a physical, like a toy or like a merch. I don't know, like anything. It could be a membership actually. If you own an NFT, you get certain perks to some information or like a club, or it's not that different from what we use in the real world right now, if that makes sense. But the great thing about NFTs is that a lot of the transactions, so if you buy something and you exchange for crypto, that is all documented on the blockchain.
Hmm.
Everyone can see it. There's
Right.
there's no lying. You can see all the transactions. So the great thing about NFTs is that, or the blockchain in general, everything is transparent, which is very different to how brands work in Web 2. So if you were ever to think about maybe the brands that you buy from, these type of information of who sold what, who bought what, where, when did they buy it, you're not going to have that information because these companies are private and they're
Hmm.
not going to give that information away easily. But with the blockchain, you can see it all, I suppose, all of these transactions. So it's a lot more authentic. And this is the reason why in the NFT space, it's community driven because everyone can see who is in the community, who has these NFTs, who bought these NFTs. And that's why all of these people can, congregate and be like, okay, you bought this token, let's be part of this community now. So it is very community based. It is very transparent. It is very authentic, I would say. And so it is a new way of showing how businesses can function with, I would say, greater trust, actually, greater trust in the system. Because I feel like, especially in our generation, maybe not our generation, but I would say nowadays, actually, if you think about social media and the way that social media is heading, a lot of people don't trust big brands that much anymore, but they will trust this person who's talking online because they're showing up every day, showing their authentic self, and you feel like you know them, right?
Hmm.
So instead of these big brands selling a dream or selling a lifestyle, people want to know instead nowadays how they like the process of making stuff, who's making it, where is it being made. They want to know all of this stuff. So this whole authenticity thing, it really ties in with, I suppose, the creator economy. It ties in with Web3 because everything is a lot more transparent. And that's the sort of trend I see happening right now. Who knows, it might change in the next few years, but currently that's what I see a lot of people appreciating more.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with that as well. It's when you see somebody, regularly, like you said, showing up authentically, you do gain some trust in them. Like you would like to think that they mean that and that
Hmm.
it's less of like a bunch of people conspiring on like how are we going to sell you something. It's more like just a person who's hopefully, finding things that they like and working with those companies to let people know about them and that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to ask you about your social media stuff, but I want to also ask you about before that. With NFTs, I definitely see the value of like the transparency behind the transactions and a lot of the things that working on the blockchain can offer. With that said, a lot of people have had a really negative reaction to NFTs. Have you experienced any of that, whether it's through social media or in general?
I'm aware of how NFTs are, what would you call it? How they are
Abused?
perceived. Yeah, how they perceived by everyone. Because there's two things. I would say there's two big things that people are quite against NFTs. The first one is all the scams. Okay,
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
2020, it blew up. The NFT space blew up, and of course, where there's money being generated, the scammers will come. So
Mhm.
a lot of people were easily tricked or fooled because there's not a lot of regulations in the space, which is why if you ever dabble, it's the same with stocks and shares. If you ever dabble with something that is volatile financially, you need to do your diligence and you need to be smart. Don't
Mhm.
just click any link. Don't trust people on the internet so easily. You want to verify, especially if you're dealing with your own money, you know? So that's the thing. I mean, the scammers definitely have gotten less because the space, there was a boom in 2020. It's now piped down a little bit since then, but they're still there. There's always going to be scammers everywhere. So you just got to be careful with your finances and who you trust in the space. The second thing is with NFTs, there was a concern for environmental issues because um, the blockchain Ethereum, which is the second most used blockchain, I believe. I think Bitcoin is first and then it's Ethereum.
Hmm.
So Ethereum, it used to be a proof of work, I believe, proof of work system, which meant
Yeah.
it, in terms of when you buy something on a blockchain, and if you were to exchange a cryptocurrency, in terms of the energy used to calculate all of those transactions, because they have to, it's all code at the end of the day, they have to calculate it and verify it on the blockchain
Hmm.
before the transaction goes through. So to calculate all of that transaction, the energy consumption was pretty high. It was, yeah, it wasn't sustainable at all, which
Yeah.
uh, someone, as I said, because it's transparent, you can see everything, right? So of course somebody wrote an article showcasing that, and everyone saw that article. They were like, "Oh my god, don't use NFTs. It's really bad for the planet." And I agree with that at that point. I was like, "Damn, this is, I'm generating income, but I don't want to kill the earth at the same time."
Right.
Now, fast forward, we're in 2023 now. And
Hmm.
last year, actually, Ethereum, the blockchain, has actually switched their system from proof of work to proof of stake. So I feel like within a year and a bit, or let's give them 2 years. Within like 2 years, they've managed to switch their whole system around to make their energy consumption now 99.95% less than it was before. So
Wow.
yes, it was really bad at first. Like, I'm not even going to disagree with that,
Hmm.
but the fact that they managed to make that change within like 2 years, it means they care and they want to, they're what would you call it? Future facing. They want to continue, right? And another thing that people may not know is that you don't have to use Ethereum blockchain if you do not want to. There's
Hmm.
so many different ones out there, and there's a lot of them that use the proof of stake system,
Hmm.
which is the one that is 99.95% less than what the proof of work was. So there's so many other blockchains like Tezos and Solana. So you didn't have to use Ethereum if you didn't want to, but people are just not aware of the different blockchains. So those are the two things that really, I suppose, gave bad press about NFTs.
Yeah.
But another thing I always tell people when they talk to me about this, because I guess I'm so passionate about debunking about the NFT bad press, is that the fact that with the Web3 and the blockchain being so transparent, people can nitpick at it, right? They can
Yeah.
see information. But people don't think about when they're scrolling on social media, where are all those videos stored? Where are all those
Hmm.
pictures stored? Where are your emails stored? If you're using a cloud-based storage, where are all your videos and pictures being stored on? They're going to be stored on servers somewhere, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
all going to be on servers, which is not too different from blockchain, right? Anything that is digital has to be stored somewhere.
Hmm.
And that is energy being used. But we don't get that information freely about how much energy is being used with all of these private companies that have these services that are using or storing stuff. So you can't really compare with the private companies, right? The big businesses. But with the Web3 space, you can, because it's all out there. You can see the information. So I always give that as a thought piece. Just like think about all the other digital stuff that you use. That's
Hmm.
going to be stored somewhere. There's energy being used there as well.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a good point. And it's funny, we just like it's on the cloud. It's like it's in the sky. But people don't realize like on the cloud is it's just in a bunch of servers somewhere.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true that this is a something that exists for all of our technology. We just don't always look at it until there is some article written about it and everyone's suddenly talking about the repercussions of a particular piece of tech. So I do get why you, and especially working in the space and seeing all the value of blockchain and these interactions. Um, I could see why there'd be a passion to debunk some of these negative views of it. And I think you're right. I think like the scammers flocked to NFTs and really gave a bad name for it. And I think that that really tainted the public's opinion because once you see that, it's easy to be like, okay, it's too much work to even like think about it. I just know scams and I don't want to like put any more work to like understand
Hmm.
the value or like the other side of the story.
Yeah.
But I think over time, as it's used in ways that are not scammy and people are seeing it being used in these ways and they're like, oh, this is actually a really useful way to do it. It's transparent and this and this. I think I do think it will pick back up, and I think there will definitely be a place for it in a lot of spaces.
Yeah,
And with the rise of AR, it's interesting to see where that will go as well. Yeah.
exactly. I just want to pause for one sec. I just need
Sure.
to send one message and then we
Yeah,
can
go
carry
for
on
it. Yeah, no rush.
before I forget.
Yeah, we
I
can
just
always
need to
wait.
tell my partner or something. You know, it's one of those things when you're like, oh, I need to
Yeah.
tell them before I forget. Uh, hold on. Okay, cool.
Cool. Okay. So, what have I, oh yeah. Um you're on a number of different social media platforms. You do, and you're successful on all of them as well. You do TikTok, you do YouTube, you do Twitch, where we met. You do, there was other ones as well, I believe. Like, can you tell me more about what you do on social media? How you manage to find the time to do them all? How do you pick which one you focus on? How do you decide what content goes on which platform? Tell me all about it.
How do I find time? I'm very bad at time management because I cram everything into one day, like nearly every day. I feel like I'm a workaholic at heart, but before I became a freelancer, I worked full time actually as like a motion designer. So I would use my 9 to 5 job. I would be working, and in the evenings, I would actually be learning digital fashion at the time. I would be posting on Instagram what I learned. And I didn't care if it looked really bad at that time because if you were to scroll down on my Instagram and see my first digital fashion piece, definitely very basic and not that good. But I think the point is that I just kept posting. I wasn't scared that it wasn't my best. I think what people really enjoyed is seeing my progress actually. So I think people watching my progress, seeing me grow, and the fact at that time, I think I created a piece every week, which is now I think about it, I'm like, wow, can I do that now? I don't even know because um, I had spare time. This was during lockdown when I said I've got all this extra time back and I spent it at home. So I created a digital fashion piece pretty much every week, and I actually finished it on my Twitch streams. I would like start it at the beginning of the week, and I would have my Twitch streams on Thursdays, and I would build it with my community. Then I would finish it, render it, post it on social media, and then a new week would start, and I would repeat this process. I don't have that time to do that right now because I feel like I got into the point where I've built up or I've done that so much now that I don't need to do it every single week anymore. So that's
Mm,
where I started actually, just posting every single week. And the reason why I did that, first of all, I wanted people to see what I was doing.
hmm
Second of all, I wanted to become a freelancer because I didn't want to work under someone else anymore. I
hmm
think it just came to a point where I really wanted a change. And I got recognition from my digital fashion pieces on social media. So that was like some sort of validation for me. I'm like, okay, people are liking this. Maybe if I actually let me save up for like a good 6 months and then I'm going to try freelancing and working for myself. And I'm going to see if I can make it just doing digital fashion. And so I went on that journey. I quit my job in 2021, I think. I can't remember now. It's either 2020 or 2021. I quit my job, became a full time freelancer, and I started just creating more or focusing more of my time on social media because the great thing about social media, it is a very visual platform, all of them. And I'm a visual artist. So and as you know, with the rise of Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and TikTok, everything turned video based, which was absolutely perfect for my sort of work. So the fact that I was able to not only showcase what I could do as an artist, I was also able to show people the process, which I think that's what people really liked because I would show my final work, then I would show my process. And people could
hmm
see, oh, she did that, then she did that, and then it made that. Okay, this looks cool. But
Yeah.
before, I would say before Instagram Reels really existed, a lot of the work on Instagram, or a lot of what you would see, especially in the creative community, it would always be finished works. And you would have no idea how they did it. You'd be like, oh, wow, this looks amazing, but how did they do it?
Mm.
And so Instagram a few years ago used to be almost just like a portfolio page of your best work. And you wouldn't show the process that much.
Hmm.
Now you scroll on Instagram now and on TikTok, everything is process.
Yeah.
Everything is like, you don't, if you just show a final piece, people get bored. They're like, okay, cool. But
Right.
if you scroll and you see someone, okay, I started with making this and like, and then we made that, and then oh, this went wrong, and it's just a lot more interesting and it's a lot more human. You can, it's, you're learning with them, and you're also, learning more about the artists, which
That's
I would say before people just only knew the artwork, but they didn't know the artist. They didn't know
right.
much about the artist or the personality or the character behind them. Now people like, of course, as I said, the creative economy and this authenticity, knowing the person behind the works is a lot, does a lot, and it helps people relate to you a lot better as well. So I realized that whilst I started posting a lot on social media, that people like this sort of content, and I've just started to I just carried it on.
Hmm.
And I've actually didn't start my YouTube channel until, I didn't take it really that seriously until this year, I think. Like this year, I'm really going for it.
Nice. That's
But
exciting.
before that, I think I was focusing more so on Instagram and TikTok and Twitch. And then afterwards, I focused on Twitter, because Twitter is where the Web3 community and NFT community is. So that's a whole different community. And then, oh, what other ones are there? I think YouTube after that. Yeah. So I didn't do them all at the same time.
Hmm.
So I think I started on like three social medias, and then I just started adding to them. And then the thing that I learned with each social media is that you cannot usually post the same thing. Each
Hmm.
social media has their own way of talking or their own way of posting stuff. So you got to learn that lingo as well with each platform.
Right.
I feel like the reason why I'm posting on all these different platforms is to also help, I suppose, with my reach, to get
Hmm.
more people to see what I do.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Do you know where they mostly come from now that you've got a number of platforms that you're on?
Yeah, I always ask people on Twitch because they say, "Hey, I'm from Instagram. I saw your, your Instagram reel," or "Oh, I saw your TikTok." And sometimes I get people saying, "Oh, I saw your Twitter tweet saying you're live on Twitch right now." I'm like, "Oh, wow, they're actually working. The algorithm's
Hmm.
not working against me for once." So I would say most of my following probably comes from Instagram still.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I would say it's probably one of the strongest, and then TikTok, and then Twitter, and then YouTube. YouTube can. I'm still working on that.
With Instagram, how did you decide between like reels versus posts, and like how did you decide all about, like, you obviously did a really good job with it. You got a big following. How did did you plan it? Was it organic? How did this go about?
I I think I actually dabbled more in TikTok during the year of 2020. TikTok blew up during that year as well,
Hmm.
2019 to 2020, because everyone was at home and everyone was bored and making TikToks. So I think that was the time I gave more love to TikTok, and I realized that I didn't want to make the video twice. So I just
Yeah.
posted it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And what I found is actually the format that I use on TikTok actually works really well on Instagram.
Hmm.
And of course, Instagram Reels came as well. And so I think because I saw the trend of TikTok, I just I took that and I just replicated it on Instagram, and that actually just worked a lot better for me. Because what I
Oh.
realize now, if I were to post pictures on Instagram, it doesn't get much reach or as much as it does with a video. So everything is really video based, and
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So that's, I think, because of the trend, I decided to do that with Instagram.
That makes sense. It's smart. It sounds like you have a really good understanding of how to spot social media trends and how to like work with the right platform in the right way. So that's like a
You can
very good
only
skill.
do that if you spend too much time on social media. And I do spend too much time on social media. Sometimes I feel like I'm addicted because it's my
Hmm.
work. But then I get entertained in my free time, and I'm like, oh, I wanna look at these videos, and then I'm just scrolling for like 2, 3 hours, and like time is gone. So it's
Yeah.
a good and bad thing, I would say.
Yeah, I understand that. Though I mean, you're getting entertainment from something that you're also learning from while you're getting entertainment. So it's maybe not like if you were just sitting there watching Netflix,
Yeah,
you wouldn't be learning. So it's like maybe it's not as bad as some other things you might be doing to get
I'll
entertainment.
I'll take that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will take that. I will take that point.
Speaking of, what do you do in like your what's your like routine like? What's your day to day like? Are you always working? Like you're I'm also you since you're workaholic, I'm also a workaholic. You always working? Do you take breaks? Do you have hobbies outside of this stuff?
I have implemented a schedule where I do not work on weekends because I used to work on weekends, especially when I used to work my 9 to 5 job.
Hmm.
I think during that time, I wasn't feeling creatively at my best. So I needed something, I needed to create something and be creative in my spare time. And my spare time was of course, my evenings and my weekends.
Hmm.
But as I become a freelancer now, um, I I am working more. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm working more than my 9 to 5,
Yeah.
but it's because you're a freelancer, you're working for yourself, you're doing your taxes yourself, your admin, your project managing, your email, like everything. Like you're doing all of that stuff. You're not just only being creative, which I wish I could be
Yeah.
creative, but it's not. That's the truth of being a freelancer. And I've decided to really utilize my time on my weekends to spend it away from my work because I've realized that you can't be just working all the time, otherwise you're going to burn out. And also, there's more to life than just work. I want to spend it with, I don't know, just traveling, going out with my friends, going out with my family, seeing them. So I'm trying to have that balance, if that even is a balance. 5 day work, 2 day rest. But other than that, in terms of my schedule, I take it as I come because the type of work I do is so different every single day. One day I might be making videos for content creation. Another day I might be creating a digital fashion piece for a client. And if that client work is done, I might be creating something educational for my YouTube or for my Patreon. So it depends what's happening that week because I always switch it up depending what is on the priority list first. And I think because I'm trying to build my own brand as well, if I stop working, my brand's not going to grow. People are not going to
Mhm.
get to know me. And I think it's I don't know how to explain it, especially with social media. If I stop posting, like you'll be forgotten so quickly on social
Mhm.
media. It
It's
almost
crazy.
feels like you have to constantly post to remind people you exist, to remind people that you create these works because the algorithm's so quick now that you're gonna flick, and then like you're gonna be off the algorithm if you don't post within a week or 2 weeks or a month, which is too long for me. So I'm
Mhm.
always thinking of, okay, I need to make sure I'm on it, which means my mind is always switched on. So it's a very difficult thing. I think I need a team. That's at the end of this, I need a team who can manage like this time management for me and admin and social media stuff because yeah, for one person it is quite a lot to
Yeah.
handle all of that.
It definitely is, but it sounds like you're doing amazing. And hopefully, with your success that you've been having, you can hire a team soon and then you can be more focused on the creative stuff and have people helping with the admin stuff. That's the
That
dream,
is the
isn't it?
dream. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Well, good luck with you to forming that. I hope it happens for you soon and I hope it goes really smoothly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining today. It's been so interesting hearing all about what you get up to, digital fashion. Oh, I have one more question before we wrap up.
Okay.
Do you ever you work in Clo 3D, which I believe is the one to that actually uses like the seams, unlike Marvelous, where it has the stitching and everything. So you can send it for production. Do you ever turn your digital fashion into physical fashion?
I haven't yet. I would love to actually dabble in physical fashion. It kind of scares me because I don't come from a fashion background. I don't really know how manufacturing works. I think this is something I'm able to learn though. I'm not scared to learn and fail, but I think it requires a lot more labor, a lot more thinking and research because with digital fashion, you can create things and not worry about measurements. You
Hmm.
don't have to worry about, oh, whether this button actually works or is it practical? Does this actually make sense? in digital fashion, I'm like, if they can't see it in the inside, I'm just gonna, sew it here. It's fine.
Right.
It looks like it works.
Yeah.
So of course, in physical fashion, you can't do that.
Mm,
Gotta have measurements. You
hmm.
gotta, have things that actually the placements be correct. So I think that's something I'm actively learning now. And it's a space that I'm quite interested in. That's for sure. But
Yeah.
it's definitely it does cost more in order to
Hmm.
produce things, and also it's more time consuming because in the sense that I will have to research and actually test things and sample things physically and
Yeah.
but I'm not opposed to it, and I
Hmm.
think it will be very exciting. If I ever get to wear my designs, that would be amazing.
That would be really amazing. And it's exciting to know that you're starting to dig into it. And I do understand there is a lot of like a whole different side of technical challenges and learning. Not only learning, but also like when you're actually making it, you have to go through and think these things through. So like you have to take the time to learn it and get used to it, and then you have to implement that. So I can see the additional workload and probably a financial kind of requirement too, because like you said, you need to do tests, you need to do like prototypes, you need to figure out
Mhm.
if these things work. So I can see that being a big undertaking, but I'm definitely excited to hear how your progress with that goes and see you making
Yes.
stuff both digitally and physically. That'll be really cool.
Well, I will let you know if it ever happens this year.
Okay, cool. So where can people find you online?
Everywhere, because I
Everywhere.
am everywhere. My
Where are you
handle
finding it?
is Steffi Fung, and I will. Okay, I guess I would say I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. I'm on LinkedIn, on Patreon, Pinterest. I am everywhere. You just need to search Steffi Fung and you can find one of those. You will find me.
Amazing. Sounds great. Okay, well, thanks again for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye bye. Okay, we're going to continue recording. I just have a couple questions. And again, I might be doing like reels or shorts or TikToks, but I don't know. So we'll just record them in case.
Okay.
Um, you already answered this, but these are meant to be shorter.
Yeah.
What software do you use for creating digital fashion?
So I use Das 3D. Oh, wait. Do you want me to explain what I use them for?
Yeah, just a quick rundown of what you use them for would be probably good too.
Let me just hold on. I'm going to turn on a light just because it's getting a bit dim now. See. Okay, that's better. Okay. Sorry, the question one more time, please.
Sure. What software do you use for creating in the digital fashion space?
So I use a few programs. The first one that I would use is Das 3D, which I create avatars from. The next one I would use is Clo 3D, which is a digital fashion garment creation program. So you can create all your digital fashion outfits there, or you can actually create anything that is fabric based. So you can also create anything like curtains or pillows or bags. If you want to make things out of fabric, that is the program you would go to. The next one is, let me have a think, there's so many. Substance Painter, which is my texturing go-to program, which I absolutely love. Texturing is my favorite part of 3D, so I utilize that to actually draw custom textures and actually, yeah, create my own style of textures for my digital fashion pieces.
Hmm.
The next one after that is to combine everything in a 3D program, and the one that I utilize is Cinema 4D, and I would actually build a 3D scene specifically for a digital fashion piece. And actually, that is where I would do the lighting. Um, yeah, it is where I would do the lighting. It's where I would do the texturing and not texturing. What was it? It's where I would do. What do I do there? Let me think. It's where I would do the lighting. It's where I would do the rendering and actually just build the 3D scene. So that's where everything comes together. And then lastly, I composite everything and color correct. I suppose any final touches to my animation in After Effects. Or if it's a still image, I would do that in Photoshop.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining. Um, do you have any tips to people who are interested in getting into digital fashion?
Yes, it's hard because with digital fashion, there's not a lot of resources that tell you step by step how to do everything. There are very good beginner resources on YouTube now from programs like Clo 3D, Marvelous Designer. There is the Blender. Digital Fashion Blender. I think that's one of the programs. There is a oh, there's so many. I've actually got like a list I could send to you, but there's if you search on YouTube, beginner digital fashion or like Koi 3D, there's really good beginner ones there now. So you can get your hands dipped in there. But for more advanced types of tutorials, it's kind of harder to find, which is why I've actually started to teach it on my own Patreon because my community were asking, okay, Steffi, we know like the basic stuff, but like how do you move it from Clo 3D to Substance Painter? How do you move it from Substance Painter to Cinema 4D? Because there's
Hmm.
not a lot of people doing that. So actually I've been requested so many times that I've decided to create like a channel just for people to start learning how to move between all of these different programs for more advanced people. But the best way to get into digital fashion, because I recognize not everyone might be from a fashion background, not everyone might be from a 3D background. So the best way to learn digital fashion is maybe have the basic fashion terms noted. So learn those basic fashion terms because all of these digital fashion programs, they utilize real physical fashion terms like the patterns and the sewings and the seams and the hems, which I actually had no clue what they meant before, but now I do.
Hmm.
And with the 3D side of things, now 3D is absolutely is a monster of a topic. There's so many things that go into it. So I think having a basic understanding of 3D as well, whether it's modeling, texturing, animating, lighting, rendering, all of those, having a basic understanding of those will really help you as well.
Cool. Last question. Do you think that there's any potential for overlap between game development and digital fashion?
Oh, absolutely. Um, with digital fashion, and actually this is something that I learned recently. I created a video called "What is digital fashion?" Like, what is it? And I
Hmm.
actually posted that on YouTube. And during that, after researching for that video, I realized that digital fashion has always been here, especially during games. Like, if you
Hmm.
were to go to play with a lot of RPG games, you get to customize your character, right?
Yep.
That's the first thing you do. You would customize your character, how they look, and you can buy skins, you can change the skins up. So digital fashion has always been closely connected to games, right? So oh, ask me the question one more time.
Is there potential for overlap?
So the potential for overlap, definitely. I think there are recent examples with physical fashion partnering with games, so such as Burberry and Minecraft. They recently
Hmm.
did a collaboration. You could
Really?
actually, I think they created like a Burberry world, and
Okay.
you could wear their pieces. I don't know if you had to buy it, but there was also not only digital pieces, but you could have the physical collection as well. So they created
Okay.
both. And I
Hmm.
believe there was also one with Balenciaga and Fortnite. So
Right.
they also created a collection on Fortnite, which also had some games dynamics. So I think there was one where it was like a shoe and it changed into an axe. But it was pretty cool that they utilized, fashion, but also added it to the game. So there's a lot of collaborations happening. And I'm thinking more of that will happen in the future for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it's like the overlap of fashion and games is digital fashion, which is very cool. So you're right in saying
Exactly.
that. Very cool.